Okay, I would like to call this meeting to order, the March 20th Kildare Hills Board of Commissioners meeting. If you all would join me, please, and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we begin the meeting tonight, you can look around the room and see a nice filled room this evening. We have a lot of special guests this evening from the Dare County Veterans Advisory Council, and we'll hear a presentation shortly, but thank you all very much for joining us. And as is customary, we would normally take a moment of silence, and I think it would be appropriate at this time to, as we enter that moment of silence, thank all of those who serve our country in multiple capacities. Thank them for their service, those who have served and those who are serving. And with that, I call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. This evening, I know we have Chairman Warren Judge in the room with us. Welcome, Warren. Thank you for being here. Before we approve the agenda, which is the next item, I would like to make mention Commissioner Rubottom is sick this evening. That's why she's not here. And we also have a letter that we received from Commissioner Buske. So I think I would like to read the letter. I guess we need to amend the agenda to include the reading of the letter, and then I'll do that right after. So maybe I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the addition of the first item being the reading of the letter from Commissioner Buske.
I second your motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to read this verbatim. We received this today, March 20th, to Town Manager Debbie Diaz and myself, and copied the Board of Commissioners seat. Dear Debbie and Sheila, this letter is very hard for me to write to you today. I'll cut right to the point. Due to a series of medical issues that continue to deteriorate, I must resign my seat on the Board of Commissioners effective immediately. The most pressing issue that I'm having is seizures and blackouts that now come without notice and have caused 5 trips to the emergency room in the last 2.5 months. I've lost my ability to drive and work due to these issues and require someone to drive me as needed. There are also other medical issues that will prevent me from holding this position, and it is a disservice to the town citizens if I can't be at each meeting to do the job properly. I can't give 100% to this position, and I have always had the philosophy if I can't give 100%, it is time to move on. I have very much enjoyed my service on this and other town boards and will miss being on a town board. I am very proud of all that was accomplished during my tenure, and I will miss all those that I have worked with for approximately 17 years. It has been a pleasure working with all of you. I appreciate you listening to my thoughts and ideas. Thanks to all the citizens who have supported me over the years, and hopefully one day I will be able to come back and serve the town. I am always available to contact if needed, and will keep in touch the best I can. The town is in good hands, and you will still be hearing from me to comment on town issues and ordinances. It has been my honor to serve the town, and I regret that I must make this decision. My best wishes to you all. Sincerely, Paul Buske. It would be appropriate at this time for the board to accept Commissioner Buske's resignation, certainly in light of his medical issues that have been ongoing.
I'd like to make a motion. Is that all right? Mm-hmm. I'd make a motion for the Board of Commissioners to accept Commissioner Buske's resignation effective immediately, which action makes this a 4-member board until such time as a replacement is appointed or the next municipal election is held.
And I second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Certainly, and I'll comment later in the meeting under Mayor's agenda about this further. Next on our agenda is the public hearing this evening. We have one public hearing scheduled. That's for zoning amendment request on Trading Corporation to add events garden as a conditional use in the commercial zone and establish definition, parking, signage, and lighting requirements for that use. We had a sign-up sheet this evening for anyone interested in speaking at this public hearing. This is the time that's set aside to speak just for the public hearing. We'll have public comment a little later, which is then open to any topic. I know we have some students here with us. You'll do public comment, not public hearing. Okay. We did not have anyone sign up to speak specifically at this public hearing, but is there anyone who does wish to speak specific to this item? Anyone? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing. And Greg, do you want to do just a quick introduction of this item?
I will. Mayor, microphone over this way. What we have tonight is a request to amend the commercial zoning district text to allow for event gardens. And this was recommended for approval by the planning board on January 15th. And then the Board of Commissioners, this board, scheduled a public hearing February 11th, which you just heard the results of it tonight. It's no secret. The staff supports this amendment, and there was one slight change in the interim that was mentioned in the manager's memo. That there's a little additional language that gives the applicant the option of filing a recombination plat or to file a restrictive covenant to tie everything together in one lot. So there's specifications on setbacks for this event garden. There's times of operation. There's a minimum of 1 acre, and it has to be attached as an accessory use to a hotel or motel. And with that, staff would recommend approval.
Okay.
Oh, and it's business friendly too.
That's right. Okay. Open the floor for discussion. Your comments?
I concur in the
Yeah.
planning board's recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's pretty well safeguarded with what all we've had put in there, and planning board did a good job on it, and I think it's fine.
And I'm supportive as well. I think this is kind of consistent with things that we do want to see in our town as far as, you know, open use of space, and I think it's going to enhance some of the outdoor area there. So would either of you like to make a motion?
I move approving of the zoning amendment request as presented.
And I don't know if this may be different than we now have to add a consistency statement.
All right. The
The
proposed amendment adds events garden to 153.002 definitions, 153.074 lighting, 153.076 delta, table of parking requirements, 153.077 signs, and 153.177 commercial zone conditional uses is consistent with all comprehensive plans and other official adopted plans of the town of Kill Devil Hills that are applicable. The amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it will provide another venue for weddings, reunions, birthdays, and gatherings in one of the area's largest growing industries, and is in keeping with a family beach atmosphere.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda this evening is under introductions, item number 1, and it's really exciting. We're really pleased to have so many people here for this agenda item tonight. Mr. Punk Daniels is here. He's the Vice Chairman of the Dare County Veterans Advisory Council, and this is a special recognition of local Vietnam veterans. And Mr. Daniels, would you approach the lectern, please? I think you have an introduction to give and kind of set the platform for tonight's presentation.
Well, we're going to just speak briefly here on behalf of the veterans, and then we'll go from there. Let me go with what I got.
Absolutely.
First of all, Mayor, thank you very much, and thanks to your town board for the privilege and the opportunity to celebrate the Vietnam veterans. It's a long time coming that some of these recognitions have taken place. Warren Judge here, our chairman of the commissioners, county commissioners, has been very gracious in our support for the new, recently formed DARE Advisory Council for Veterans, and we're off to a good start. I'll speak more about that in a few minutes. The primary lesson, I want to talk a little bit about Vietnam because some of you young fellows may not be too familiar with what that was all about. Primary lesson that should be learned from Vietnam is the folly of engaging in what is a so-called limited war. It was only limited for the United States. It was a totally unlimited war for the enemy involved. It was a total war for that enemy. What we should learn is that when the United States commits to a war, we should commit to win it with the full force of our military might and all the available weapons. American blood should never be shed or sacrificed for any cause other than victory. The U.S. policy of containing communist expansion worldwide was emphasized by President John F. Kennedy. He was the driving force behind U.S. involvement in Southeast Asia, and I believe it was a worthy cause. It was also at this time there was postulated in this same concept of containing communism the domino theory, that being that it asserted that if South Vietnam fell to the communist North Vietnamese, the surrounding countries in Southeast Asia would likewise be overcome by communist aggression. The theory can be accurately documented now as fact. In the fall of South Vietnam, as well as both Cambodia and Laos, to communist regimes following the United States withdrawal from Southeast Asia in 1975, which was our final withdrawal. Now, our national media has been often criticized in this day and time, and I'm going to lay a little bit of a criticism on now. They somewhat misrepresentative and misreported a lot of the Vietnam War facts, things that were actually taking place. And it stirred up hostility among certain elements, and particularly our college-age generation who were subject to the draft. And it was often exacerbated by radical anti-American fringe groups. The so-called peaceniks or anti-war protesters of the 60s and the 70s failed to grasp a great truth of that era. Listen closely. It is useless for the sheep to opt for peace if the wolf is of another persuasion. No one hates war more than the warrior. He has seen, heard, felt, smelled, and fully experienced the total degradation and devastation of human life and moral character in warfare. The warrior will carry those scars, physical, psychological, and even spiritual, for the rest of his life. I ask you folks to look around you here today at these men and women who served our nation in Southeast Asia. They are not asking to be recognized as heroes, even though they assuredly are. So are their families who kept the faith through it all. I can speak firsthand about leaving children behind when you're gone for an indefinite period of time and frequent periods of time, to be involved in a conflict from which you may never return. And the families understood that, and yet they stayed with us. But these warriors, what they did what they did because of who they are. Loyal servants to their God, their country, and to their families. So who are they? Well, let me give you some statistics on the Vietnam warrior. Of the 8,744,000 personnel on active duty during the Vietnam era, 3,403,000 served in the Southeast Asia theater. Roughly 2,594,000 of that number served in South Vietnam. As many as 40 to 60% of them fought in combat, provided close combat support, or were frequently exposed to hostile action. 70% of all Americans who served in Vietnam were volunteers. 25% were drafted, compared to 65% who were drafted during World War II. Their average age was 23 years. I carried them up a little bit on that. Compared to 26 in World War II. 79% had a high school education or better. It is the best equipped group that has ever been sent to combat by any nation in the history of the world. Of those who died, 86% were Caucasians. 12.5% were African Americans. 1.5% were others. At that time in history, in the 1960s and 70s, that paralleled very closely the distribution of the population of the United States. 91% of Vietnam vets said they are proud that they served. 74% said they would serve again, even knowing the outcome. Only 0.5% Vietnam veterans have ever been jailed for crimes. 97% were discharged under honorable conditions. 85% made a completely successful transition to civilian life after their service. 90% of the vets had jobs in 1980, even in the midst of a recession. 25% have reported some post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. We hear about a lot of that now from the Middle East. But the PTSD among Vietnam veterans appears to be largely the result of the common perception that they received a far less friendly reception on their return than veterans of other American wars. Now, what you have done here today is a healing balm for many old wounds. And your attention and your kindness has been a great blessing to every one of us here. The recently formed Dare County Veterans Advisory Council is dedicated to identifying our military veterans from all branches of the service who served at any time in the military and providing them with guidance and information of existing resources available to them. The Veterans Advisory Council meets on the fourth Thursday of each month at 3 p.m. in the Dare County Administrative Building and is open to all veterans and the general public. Clarence, would you stand up, please? Clarence Skidder is the chairman of our Dare County Advisory Council. And I'd like to remind you now that we have scheduled the Vietnam Veterans Family Picnic take place here at Kill Devil Hills Veterans Park on Saturday, March the 30th, beginning at noon. It's a bring your own lunch and come and fellowship with one another and get a chance to tell a few war stories. I'd also like to recognize Marcia Bryant. She's groaning over there. But I'd like to recognize her for her weekly editorial in the Coastland Times, The Gig Line. For those of you that don't know what a gig line is, in the military, it's one of the first things you're taught in boot camp. You line up from top to bottom. Means your belt buckle is lined up with your fly and your belt buckle is lined up with your buttons on your shirt. That's the gig line. Everything is in line. Everything is in order. Everything is disciplined. You do a great job, Marcia, and thank you for that. Marcia and her husband, Billy, have been adamant and persistent workers for support of all veterans here in Dare County and other adjacent counties. And now, at this time, I'd like to ask all the veterans in here to please stand and just remain standing for just a moment, please. All veterans, please. Please stand up. You see what a good turnout we have here today. Please remain standing just a moment. We as a group would once again like to thank your board for hosting this tribute to Vietnam veterans here today. You have warmed our hearts. You have been very gracious, and we are very grateful. Now, Marcia, being the great acquisitioner that she is, has gone out and got some roses. And let me tell you what, she gave me this little dissertation to read about the roses. She said, it has been said that the meaning of the red rose came from a complex secret language used in the Victorian era to communicate emotions without verbalizing their significance. While a single red rose meant I love you, a dozen is said to have meant thankfulness and gratitude. So on this day, and on behalf of the Vietnam veterans who are here tonight, and those who were grateful for this opportunity but unable to attend, we wish to express our gratitude to the town of Kill Devil Hills for acknowledging our Vietnam veterans in such a special way. So in behalf of all the veterans here, we salute you. And we thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Tom. God bless you. Well, Punk, if you'll still join me over there at the lectern, I'm going to come out there and... We would like, on behalf of the town, I'll step this way, not only to thank you all for coming out here this evening and certainly sharing the history with us and celebrate what you all have done, but we'd also like to adopt an official proclamation. And if you would mind, I'd like to read that and then provide copies. So, whereas the Vietnam War was fought in the Republic of South Vietnam from 1961 to 1975 and involved North Vietnamese regular forces and Viet Cong guerrilla forces in armed conflict with United States Armed Forces, allies of the United States, and the armed forces of the Republic of Vietnam. And whereas the United States government wanted to provide military support to the government of South Vietnam to defend itself against the growing communist threat from North Vietnam. And whereas approximately 2.7 million men and women of the United States Armed Services were deployed in South Vietnam during the conflict years, of which 216,000 were from North Carolina. And whereas more than 300,000 Americans were wounded there, and more than 58,000 Americans never returned home from their South Vietnam duty stations, because they made the ultimate sacrifice for their country, of which 1,624 were from North Carolina. And whereas members of the United States Armed Forces in South Vietnam served this nation through some of the most physically and mentally challenging conditions ever faced by American troops. And whereas the Paris Peace Accords were signed in January 1973, which required the release of all United States prisoners of war held in North Vietnam and the withdrawal of the United States Armed Forces from South Vietnam. And whereas on March 29, 1973, the United States Armed Forces completed the withdrawal of combat units and combat support units from South Vietnam. And whereas when they returned home upon completion of their sworn duty, people of the United States were divided in their support of the extraordinary men and women who served faithfully and bravely in South Vietnam. And whereas our nation was not united in support of our Vietnam veterans, and the actions and efforts of the entire generation of veterans went unrecognized for far too long. And whereas in 2012, President Barack Obama designated March 29, 2012, as Vietnam Veterans Day by Presidential Proclamation 8789. Now, therefore, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the town of Kildable Hills, North Carolina, I hereby proclaim that March 29, 2013, the 40th anniversary of the removal of our combat troops from South Vietnam, shall be recognized as Vietnam Veterans Day in Kildable Hills, a day on which our residents and visitors are encouraged and urged to thank a Vietnam veteran for their service and to pledge that individually and as a whole, the people of the United States shall always value and appreciate the men and women of our armed forces. Thank you. So to make it official, if I could call it I'd like to make a motion to adopt that proclamation.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you again, and thank you for being with us. And Clarence is passing around or wants people to sign up. If you haven't been in touch with Clarence this evening, please make sure that he has your information if you're a veteran, because he is trying to get a roster of all the veterans. So thank you, Clarence. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Mr. Daniels.
Okay. Next this evening, we're going to move on to public comment. And we have a handful of people here this evening to speak at public comment. In light of the time factor, and certainly we want to make sure there's an opportunity for everyone that's here that wishes to speak to make sure they have an opportunity to speak, we do request that you abide to the time. We do have a time restriction. So if you're speaking as an individual, then we ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, we ask you to limit those comments to 5 minutes. And what we do is we'll work from the list where people signed up, and then after we call those who are on the list, then we'll call and see if anyone from the floor wishes to speak as well. And when you do come to speak at public comment, you just approach the lectern there and identify yourself by name and address, and then present. And we're excited that several students are here this evening. In fact, the first individual that signed up is Stephen Peters. And Stephen, it looks like you're going to speak on behalf of a group. Okay, so 5 minutes. All right, welcome. If you'll approach the lectern, sir.
Is this okay? I just want to start by saying thank you for having us here today. And I'm speaking. My name's Stephen Peters. This is Austin Banks, and this is Grant Keenan. And we're speaking today about curbside recycling for all residents in Kittleville Hills. Okay. Kittleville Hills needs to be a leader in recycling. We have all the resources in place to provide or offer curbside recycling to all housing units. During our peak tourist season, we have a significant amount of recyclables that are being thrown away with trash. We have the remedy to this problem through curbside recycling. Just to give you some background, the town of Kittleville Hills implemented a subscription-based curbside recycling program in 2007 through Outer Banks hauling. When this was implemented in 2007, there was a limited amount of market for recyclables that were close to our area. To make it cost-effective, the town to consider curbside recycling for all residents. We believe the numbers support that we should relook at providing this service. Our proposal is to implement town-wide curbside recycling provided by the town. Data supports that the reduction in tipping fees by providing a curbside recycling program to all residential units may offset all the cost for the curbside recycling program. We propose that the plan be implemented using a contractor with a company such as Outer Banks Hauling. Here's some data. According to the town solid waste management plan, the total waste coming from the town that was disposed in 2010 and 2011 was 9,604 tons. Of this, the town estimates that 7% was construction and demolition waste, 46% was commercial, and 47% was residential. Therefore, of the 9,604 tons, 4,514 tons was residential waste. According to an EPA study in 2010, Americans recycled and composted 1.51 pounds of their residential waste generation of 4.43 pounds per person per day. Based on this study, we can conclude that 34% of our solid waste is potentially recyclable. Therefore, of the 4,514 tons of residential waste in Kittleville Hills, 1,535 tons could potentially be recycled. If 1,535 tons of the town of Kittleville Hills residential solid waste was recycled with the $71.06 ton tipping fee for solid waste, then this is a potential savings of $109,077 out of $638,000 in total tipping fees. Oops. I don't know what happened. If the town implemented a curbside recycling program for all residents, the cost per household could potentially go down to $5 to $6 per bin instead of a $7.82 per bin currently for the subscription program. At 6,600 housing units for all residents to have curbside recycling, like we took in consideration that larger homes may need more than one bin based on, for example, like square footage. There could be a total cost reduction of $109,077. The cost of this curbside recycling program could potentially be $33,000 to $39,000. With the money we get from the saved tipping fees, this could potentially be profit for the town of Kiddo Hills. Some successful programs in Dare County is Town of Duck and Southern Shores. They both implemented curbside recycling, and they've showed that they do have profit from it. And Town of Nags Head also has a subscription-based curbside recycling like we do. Don't.
Do you want me to push it for you? Hang on a second, I'll do it.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Benefits of curbside recycling. It diverts recyclables from ending up in a landfill. Tipping fees would go down. Positive image for the town for tourists who visit the area who are environmentally conscious. Residents would need to take the trash out less often because of a significant amount of their trash is now recyclable. I don't know if, yeah. So in conclusion, we would like the Board of Commissioners to seriously consider requesting that this be looked at more closely and get town staff to provide detailed information in regards to whether a curbside recycling program for all town residents could be self-sustaining or in fact even save the town money. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Stephen, in your group, we will hear anyone that wishes to speak at public comment, and then we have the next item on the agenda is response to public comment. So if you'll stay, and in case the board members have anything to respond to you. Thank you. Next, Gunnar Daniels signed up, also representing a group from First Flight High School Civics class. Welcome.
First, I'm Gunnar Daniels, and I would first like to thank you for giving us time to present our proposal.
And I'm Cameron McManus, and we're here on behalf of First Flight High School. And we would just like to talk about our proposal to the town.
Great.
I was under the impression with the given amount of time that we probably wouldn't have enough time to show a PowerPoint, so we didn't quite get it ready for it. So
That's okay.
We wanted to propose we wanted to propose a disc golf course at the bomb track site that 44 acres of land. First, hey, you take it off. I don't know how to start this.
All right. So first of all, we would just like to explain to anyone who doesn't know what disc golf is. Disc golf is very similar to real golf, where you have a starting point and a tee, and you throw disc golf, and they have different sizes, sort of like putters and 9-irons and drivers, to where you try and get it into the tee, and you go distances and stuff. And it's fairly easy to construct one because they can use the trees and the area surrounding. You don't have to clear much land for it because it can be used as someone as obstacles to make it into the tees. And we think that Kiddo Hills needs a disc golf course because there's not that much recreational activities around here. I mean, there's a Parks and Rec and stuff, but sometimes it's filled up and there's not always things to do around there. So we think that a disc golf course would be a nice addition to the town. And this golf course can also use it in conjunction with other parks because the tees that they use actually are like the holes can be removable and replaceable, and you can take them out when you're not using them, and so you could turn it into a park/disc golf course. So it's really easy to manage. There's not much maintenance that goes into it like you would a regular golf course because you don't clear much land. Okay. And we think that the best spot for this is the bomb track because it's kind of the center of the town, and there's a lot of land there that's not really being used right now. And we think that a lot of kids would go to it after school, or people, because there's actually, most people don't know, but there's actually a bunch of people on the Outer Banks that know what disc golf is and play disc golf, but there's not a place around here for them to go, so they have to travel to other places to play disc golf. And we would also like to say, you want to?
Sure. Disc golf is a growing sport. It was created in the 1970s, and ever since then it's been growing exponentially. There you go. Every year more and more people play it, and I believe if kids down here were introduced to the sport, then possibly they'll start playing it, and they'll probably love it and teach their kids to play it. And you can sponsor things in disc golf, like the tees. They have like a ring around the basket that you can sponsor. You can sponsor benches and where you tee off from. So it would generate money. And other disc golf players love to travel because it's a new sport, so there aren't disc golf courses all over the place yet. So they like to travel and go play at every course available. So it would generate more tourism and more people coming down here to play on our disc golf course. Usually it's a free game to play, but there's always like clubs that get together and play, and it's a senior game, and you can have like tournaments for kids to play that could generate money, juniors and seniors to play. It's played by all ages. And if disc golf became a big thing down here, you could make it like a more serious, like professional tournament game that could generate even more money to pay for the disc golf course.
And there are also grants available to help make disc golf courses that will help schools make them and whatnot, because it is a growing thing. Not much people know about it, but a lot of people do at the same time. And so it's one of those things that, like, you either know about it or you don't. A lot of people do play it, and like he said, it is a growing sport. It was actually made like at 1970, so it's fairly new, and it's grown a lot, and a lot of people like it. It's really easy to maintain and whatnot.
Okay. Thank you both very much for presenting in the same thing. If you want to stay till we finish public comment, until we get to response to public comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Here. We didn't have anyone else sign up, but is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak at public comment? Anyone else wish to? Okay. No one else? Okay. Well, then we'll move to response to public comment. Commissioners?
Go ahead, you go first.
Well, to the first group that presented, Stephen and your group, thank you so much. You guys put a lot of work into that, doing some calculations and numbers. I see that our finance director is here. I don't know if she's had a chance to look at those numbers. Or I was going to say, I would love for her to take a look at that. I guess we have a copy now of your presentation. Is that the case?
Actually, this is it's a little more technical than that. It's a Google Doc. It's on the cloud, and I'm sure they can make that available to us.
Okay. Can you all make that available to us, and then that way we can run the numbers and see how they look against what our finance officer does. But I certainly appreciate the work that you all put into that, and I'm open to looking at how those numbers match what we come up with.
Did you by any chance find out what the tonnage of recyclables being collected right now in Kill Devil Hills and Nags Head? Under the subscription programs?
Yeah, I talked to the superintendent of waste management, Billy Gard,
Mm-hmm.
and he emailed me a PDF of all of the tonnage that they've collected, but there's not like a total to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the average per month is around like 35 tons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it deserves another look. We looked at it, and we ended up with the subscription program 5 or 6 years ago, and maybe it's time to take another look. I appreciate that very much. Very succinct. Thank you.
And then to the next group, to you guys for bringing up the Frisbee golf course or the disc golf course. I know personally that's something my husband's very interested in. So I have to confess that we have those different shaped discs at the house. I guess he used to do that long before we started dating, and never got into it. But it did look, it looked fun. And I think it's something that a lot of people, even if they're not familiar with it, would enjoy it. I think you probably would best speak to, there's some discussions right now. I don't know if having these two gentlemen come to your committee would...
Yeah, we had our meeting Monday evening of the bomb track site study committee, and we spent a considerable amount of time on this subject, and it looks as if the committee is consensus is to forward. This is going to be one of the things that they plan to forward to the Board of Commissioners to take a look at and see if it's something that would be feasible for that piece of property. And the good thing about it is, like you said, is it doesn't require much space, and it's very eco-friendly because you have to cut down very few trees, and it's just like a regular golf course, only not as big widespread as they are with the fairways and greens and everything. It's definitely something that I think the board is going to be taking a look at sometime in the near future. And thanks for bringing that up. We had Monday night, Elijah LaPlante was here, and who's the other guy? Samuel Remus, is that it? Sir. Right. Yeah, they were here also and participated in that discussion. And thanks for coming again and letting the public know about it.
Where's the closest course that to us? That is it?
There are multiple ones in Greenville, and there are a couple in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And there's some in Kingston.
Okay. Well, thank you, students, all of you, for being here. It's great to see the young folks involved, so, and for your suggestions. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, next we'll move on to new business, item number 1, the street drainage improvements recommendation. Debbie, do you?
Yes, ma'am. Be happy to. Currently, the northern block of Raymond Avenue between East Arch Street and Kitty Hawk Town Line has no formal drainage, and during extended wet periods, including rain and ocean overwash, standing water has been a problem on both sides of the road and the private property. Recall with Hurricane Sandy, the water stood in this area as much as 4 to 5 days longer than others. So with the board's permission, we had looked into the improvement costs to this block of Raymond based on plan designs from 2007, at which time we had to decline to improve due to our restrictions with the funding. On March 13th, we did receive bids for the project, and our RPC contractor submitted the lowest bid, and you have that breakdown from Steve Albright and the town engineer, Pete Berkheimer. What we'd like to recommend this evening is for this board to approve the contract with RPC for this project in an amount of $126,570 and authorize the town manager to execute it upon receiving the permits. Also to approve the engineer service agreement with ESI of Virginia in the amount of $7,300 for the construction oversight, and to approve an 8% not to exceed contingency for street drainage and the water portions of the project in the amount of $10,125.60. And further, to authorize expenditure of $55,000 from the Street Capital Reserve Fund, $39,561.20 from the undesignated fund balance, and $15,000 from the PAL bill fund. And that's actually budget amendment number 15. And as I'd stated, both Steve Albright and Pete Berkheimer are here if the board has any technical questions that they could address.
Okay. Open the floor for discussion, questions.
I'm fairly familiar with this issue, and I'm definitely in favor of us moving forward on it.
Ready?
Okay. Yeah, I am as well. I know this was kind of brought to the surface outside of some of the normal track just because of the reoccurring issues there, and I know concerns from folks living on and around Raymond. So, okay. Well, with that, if there's no questions, a motion would be in order.
I make a motion that we approve the contract with RPC as stated by the town manager for the Raymond Avenue North street drainage improvements.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Or we need to actually, do we need?
If perhaps you could Commissioner Hogan and Commissioner Pitt, if you could simply make the motion as outlined in the town manager's memo, street and drainage improvements, Raymond Avenue North, and then that would include all these other bullets along with the budget amendment.
I'll amend my motion to include that.
Thank you.
And likewise, the second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much, and I know the folks on Raymond Avenue, thank you. They had just recently sent an email to Steve from the last rain event, and we're very excited about this coming up this evening. Second on this item is the 2013-2014 street project. This came up from the Street Improvement Special Project Committee, voted to move this forward, and Commissioner Hogan may have some additional comments. But what we would ask this evening is to approve the 13-14 recommendation, which is the project Northwest Area Streets 2, Nixington, Bath, Mary Hill, Columbia Avenue, Jean Court, Shallow Street, Truxton, Palmetto, from Lee to Bath. Also to authorize the staff to move forward with the drainage and bid phase of the 2013 project, to approve the agreement with Eastern Services of Virginia for the design and the bidding phase, to authorize the town manager to execute that agreement, to authorize an expenditure not to exceed $68,000, which is budget amendment number 14, from the Street Capital Reserve Fund to appropriate funds for the engineering, and would ask you to for a motion for that this evening.
And so move.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your work, Pete.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I might, this will be the most poor streets we've ever taken to new in any one project before. I'm very excited. Thank you for the confidence. It's been a pleasure to help you rebuild roads for the last 8 years. And it was interesting to hear the earlier presentation, which took me back to 41.5 years ago when I was the battalion adjutant of the 815th Engineer Battalion, about 100 miles north of Saigon, doing what? Building roads. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Wow, thank you.
Moving on to new business item number 2, committee recommendations. First item is item A, Community Appearance Commission. The recommendation to revive the trash attack. Flip to that part. Let's see, Sue. Okay. Sue Kelly is the chair of the Community Appearance Commission. That group has met twice now. This is one of the new committees that was formed towards the end of last year. They are in the process now of kind of prioritizing what they're going to focus on as a committee, some short-term and long-term objectives. One of the short-term objectives that was, I guess, brought forth and asked now tonight for consideration of the board is to revive the trash attack. The town held a trash attack back in the mid-1990s. I was looking back through some of the information, it was very well planned and organized and detailed.
Yes, the first one was the spring of '94.
It's great to have the historian right here. And I believe fairly successful too.
It was.
So not only from the standpoint of cleaning up the town, removing trash and debris, but also in the spirit of community engagement and getting people more involved in town service and building town camaraderie. So the Community Appearance Commission is basically asking the board to do one of the 3 bulleted items. They are either consider selecting a coordinator for the event or just kind of passing it back to the Community Appearance Commission saying, yes, we support this and you as a committee make it happen and we're going to support you. And then the third item, I guess, was also an and, consider funding to do a cookout at the end as kind of a gesture of appreciation. And with that, I'd like to see how the board feels.
I think it's a good idea. It was certainly a lot of fun back in the early days when I think we did it for quite a number of years, maybe 10 years altogether. And the first 2 or 3 years were very, very well attended, and then it started to trickle off, and that'll probably happen this time too. How much money are we talking about? We're going to need to buy a couple hundred T-shirts and that sort of thing. Have we tried to figure that out? Or?
I don't think we've actually ran any numbers. We haven't purchased T-shirts in a while, but that wouldn't be very hard to do.
I wouldn't think so, but
Some hot
I think we
dogs.
probably ought to
Yeah, we could
put
do
some
that.
number out there that says a couple $100 or whatever. And how about, usually there's some refreshments or a get-together, a hot dog kind of thing. In the old days, the fire department auxiliary did that. I don't know if that's still the plan or not, but
I'm on the Philadelphia Hills Fire Department Auxiliary, and I brought this up to them, and they are willing to handle the food as they did before.
yeah. Well, I would suggest that we set aside some amount of money, just so that people know there is money available and T-shirts can be ordered, and because we'll need T-shirts and we'll need big bags and.
And the goal was to do it in the fall to coincide with the bulk trash pickup
I think that
that's
was.
what
When is it?
in the fall. They haven't set a date yet, but to
Oh,
coincide
you
with.
gotta have it in the spring. It's gotta be on the coldest day of the spring. That's tradition.
They're trying to break out that it just doesn't always have to be the way it was.
If I'm not
Fall sounds great.
If I'm not mistaken, and Jerry, you probably remember better than I do, but wasn't there a contest for the T-shirts with the school? Remember there
I was
was,
talking with Howard. Howard and I were both on that, and I recall that if there were T-shirts, they were just for the committee and for the we had various stations around the town where they would pick up a bag
Right.
and return the bags to them.
Right. But there were as many members of the committee as there were participants, so.
Just about.
Yeah, no, we still have ours too.
My memory is
Yeah,
not as good
yeah.
as
it was a trash can on it,
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
design was done by the students.
Yeah.
Well,
Because we've seen in the past, there seems to be so much more interest when you can get the students involved, because they're obviously would be very
Yeah,
proud if it
yeah.
was their design. But perhaps that's something that
Yeah.
the committee could.
And T-shirts are a bit more expensive now than they were back then.
well, is it possible that we basically send the message back to the committee that we're supportive
Let's
of
do it,
doing
yeah.
it, and then ask them to come up with
Yes.
a budget
Yes,
to bring back to us for consideration?
Yeah, and they can
Okay.
ask staff for some guidance on the
right,
amount of money that's needed.
Right.
I think.
and
But that we,
we'll support a reasonable budget.
okay.
Reasonable.
Yes, sir.
To be defined.
And I remember your definition for reasonable. So with that, may we assume that bullet 2 is what you're looking at?
Personally, that's what
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
good? Okay.
yeah.
Mike, are you okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I guess sort of, maybe they sort of all apply.
And
Consider-
and part of the deal is that all the board members have to go and attend and
Right,
carry bags and
Okay.
wear
I
T-shirts and
support that.
yeah.
get mustard on their fronts and all that sort of thing.
So basically, instead of us appointing someone, which is bullet number 1,
You're
we're
right.
actually
Right,
putting it
right.
back we're sending it to the committee for
That's
them
right,
to
that's right,
organize and.
That's right.
Exactly, and if they were to choose to appoint a coordinator, they could certainly do that.
Yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
good
And we would work with, the staff would certainly work with them on developing a budget.
Yep,
We could
Okay.
get, getting T-shirt prices wouldn't be
right,
hard.
right.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Moving on to agenda item number 3A, or actually we'll probably do them together. A and B, we have a planning board, regular term appointment, and personnel board, regular term appointment. And Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to take that agenda item?
Yeah, sure. There's a Howard Buchanan's term on the planning board is expiring next month, and he wished to be reappointed. And Christine Stafford's term on the personnel board is expiring next month, and she also expressed her wishes to be reappointed. So I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Howard Buchanan to the planning board and to reappoint Christine Stafford to the personnel board.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Did anybody else at all express interest in either board or either position?
We
We have applications on
Right,
file, and
right.
there's people that have expressed, I don't know about either of those specific boards, but generally in the past, we've honored somebody's request to continue to serve.
Okay.
There's been some discussion of term limits, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, but if that were to come about, then we would be looking at applications and moving people through there, other people from the community. That's something else that I guess maybe we could talk about at some point, or the actual boards themselves could talk about.
You know, why don't we do that? In the past, many years in the past, we occasionally did look at applications from other folks who had expressed interest. Not that we did anything much different than what we're doing tonight, but
Right.
we did look and sometimes discuss that. So.
And we have had the occasion in the, I don't know, probably one or two appointments ago, a couple of times recently, there's been members that, for whatever reason, not wish to be reappointed or step down, and then we also had
Right,
a vacancy
Right.
due to death, but certainly. Okay, so there was a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 4 this evening is an ordinance directing the building inspector to demolish and remove the dwelling located at 1208 Atlantic Street as unfit for human habitation, and directing the placement of a notice thereon that the same may not be occupied. And Debbie, this memo.
Yes, ma'am. Attached to my memo is a memorandum from Greg Lloyd, the planning director, that provides detail on the chronology of events and the actions taken by the town concerning this property. The structure has been condemned as it is unsafe, as defined in General Statute 160A 432. All required procedures of notification, condemnation, hearing, and writing the order for the removal have been followed, and the last step is the adoption of this order by the board. The property owners have been notified, and this evening Mr. Milton is in the audience and is present. Of note is that the demolishing the dwelling will not resolve the continuous nuisance violation issue, which is being addressed through the town's complaint process and is filed in the Dare County District Court. The time period for the removal of the structure has expired, and the town would proceed with obtaining cost proposals for demolition and removal once this ordinance is adopted. At our next meeting, which is April the 8th, we'll provide the board with a budget amendment to provide funding for the service, which would be the cost of the demolition and the removal, and that would constitute a lien against the real property when that cost has occurred. We would file a lien in the court with the Dare County tax collector, which will have the same priority and be collected in the same manner as a lien on special assessments. The staff recommends the board adopt this ordinance, and a motion would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion?
Do we have any feel for what the likely cost is going to be? No? Okay. Scale?
Mayor, do I have a chance that I can talk on this?
I didn't get to sign up or something. I didn't know, did I have to
Is he
sign
allowed
up?
to talk?
This is the most
He said he's
important
not allowed to talk.
decision of my life.
Unfortunately, you're supposed to speak during public comment. I mean, at this point, we're in the middle of the session. We do have another public comment session at the end. But, yeah,
You need to speak
procedurally.
Before y'all make your decision.
If I may suggest, Mayor, we could allow the owner to speak during public comment at the end of the session, and then if we feel that there is sufficient cause, we can immediately move to reconsider, which is, I believe, isn't that permitted under the?
It is.
And so if there was a reason to change our decision after we hear, we could then reconsider, and I believe the rules would permit that.
Okay, I think thank you for offering that. That's fair. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with taking action. You'll speak, but then we always could amend that. So thank you, Commissioner Pitt.
Thank you very much.
In the meantime, we should just proceed with
Yes.
action as we go.
Okay. So there's a first and second. We are under further discussion. Do you have any further discussion?
It seems reasonably straightforward to me, so I support the action as proposed.
Yes. Okay. All right. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance as presented, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item on the agenda is under presentations. Item number 1, the Outer Banks sporting events.
I'm Linda Wood, Executive Director of Outer Banks Sporting Events. And here with me is Jim Snyder, our event coordinator. Thank you very much, Mayor Davies and members of the board, for having us, allowing us to come and speak with you tonight. We would like to talk with you about how Outer Banks Sporting Events has impacted the economic development here on the Outer Banks and in the town of Kill Devil Hills in 2012. And as a token of our appreciation for the town's support over the last 7 years and from the very beginning during the first marathon in 2006, on behalf of the Dare Education Foundation, the Outer Banks Relief Foundation, and Outer Banks Sporting Events, we would like to present to you a signed, framed, official poster from the 2012 marathon. It is signed by the artist, Carolina Cotto, and the name of this poster is Joyful Run. And truly, it has been a joyful run for us and the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As most of you know, Outer Banks Sporting Events is a nonprofit, and our mission is to not only promote sporting events here on the Outer Banks, but to encourage healthy living lifestyles with our youth and our local citizens, to provide financial support for our local public schools and citizens that need relief, and as well as contribute to the economic impact here on the Outer Banks. All of our events, Greg, can you help me with that?
I can. If you raise your finger up, I'll change it every time.
Thank you very much. All of our events are planned during the shoulder season to purposefully have the most positive impact on the economic development here for our local economy. During the last year, in 2012, Outer Banks Sporting Events brought participants here from 48 states and over 10 countries. So we do feel like we are having an economic impact by bringing people here from all over the world. We have 4 major events planned this year, and Greg, I'm not sure, but if you will go to the next slide. and click on that slide.
2013. Join Outer Banks sporting events with 4 great events. The Flying Pirate Half Marathon and First Flight 5K, April 13th and 14th. Storm the Beach Adventure Obstacle Course on the Beach, June 16th. Swim, bike, and run in the Outer Banks Triathlon, September 21st and 22nd. The Gateway Bank Outer Banks Marathon and Half Marathon weekend takes place November 8th through the 10th. OBXSE.org marks the spot for healthy, active lifestyles in 2013. Visit OBXSE.org. Register now and save.
Thank you. That's a commercial that many of you may have seen running on our local channel. Greg, you can, thank you. A new event that we have planned on its own weekend this year, you heard us come and talk about piloting that event last year during the Flying Pirate weekend, is Storm the Beach, which is an adventure obstacle course here on the beach. It's planned to start and end in Kill Devil Hills, and most of the course itself will take place in this town. We had over 300 participants last year, and due to the overwhelming success of the event, everybody had a fabulous time. It was team-oriented, as well as individuals that wanted to do the course themselves could, as well as had a family division that encouraged grandparents and parents and children and everybody to participate and have fun together. Due to the overwhelming success of that event, we have put it on its own weekend, and we are hoping to bring about 1,000 participants for that event, which will indeed impact the economic development during the middle part of June. And Greg, if you'll click it again for me. One of the new trends in athletic events is to have events that encourage team building and having fun together. And that is part of the reason why we were looking at an obstacle course. And certainly we have a beach where many other places that do mud runs and those kinds of things do not. So we look forward to having a really fun event in June. And now Jim will talk to you more about the economic development that our events brought here during 2012.
Good evening. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. If you take a look at the screen there, you'll see the data that we've collected for 2012 and the total local economic impact for Dare County. And that's based off of just over 9,100 participants and their guests, a total of about 32,000 visitors. Kill Devil Hills side of it is about 1,850 participants. They indicated that they're bringing 3.26 guests with them. So that's basically just under 7,900 visitors. And with the information and the dollar amount that's given to us by the Visitors Bureau, a factor of $75 a day, they're staying about 2.2 days. You'll see the per diem total, the accommodations impact, and the estimated economic impact specifically for Kill Devil Hills. All told, we're up to just under $32 million in local economic impact generated over the past 7 years by the Gateway Bank, Outer Banks Marathon, and all the other OBSC events. That dollar amount is growing tremendously every year. We just had our most successful year this past year with participant-wise just under 11,000 participants. So more local economic impact. 100% of our net proceeds is split 50-50. It goes to the Dare Education Foundation and the Outer Banks Relief Foundation. And we also we have implemented a donation program to youth organizations for their volunteer support, things like the cheerleader group, the wrestling group, and whatnot. So if you have any questions, about our new events, the economic development data, or if you'd like to see any of that, please feel free to contact either one of us. We'd be more than happy to give that to you.
Great.
So,
Thank you very much.
yes, and thank you for all your support. You guys do a great job in assisting us in putting together this big puzzle from November, from Kitty Hawk down to Manio. You guys are right in the middle of it, and you know, your staff and whatnot, they're tremendous. I mean, they've got that eye of how can we help, what can we do to help you guys, and that really helps us a lot. So we want to thank you very much for that support.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay. We ready? Thank you both very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks for all you do. Appreciate it.
Okay. Do you want to move on to Commissioners' agendas? Welcome.
Welcome.
We'll move to you for your agenda this evening, Commissioner Pitt, and we're happy that you're here with us. So we've been enjoying your monthly reports, but it's nice to have you physically here with us.
This particular piece of the agenda involves the resolution urging members of the North Carolina General Assembly and the governor concerning the appointment of board members for the local management entities for the 19 counties comprising the East Carolina Behavioral Health Organization. And the county has asked for our support on two key points on this. The first is the counties in general, including our county, the Board of County Commissioners, wants to ensure that the membership of the LME must include one county commissioner from each of the participating counties to ensure that elected officials who are responsible to the citizens they serve will comprise the majority of the LME board. And they want to make sure that the size of the board is not to exceed 21 members. So ordinarily, we support our county commissioners when they make requests like this, but there might be a little bit of a problem here. 19 of 21 members are going to be county commissioners, as I understand it. Have I got it right?
Yeah.
The way it's written.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be a governing board for a professional organization. I'd like to suggest that since the county has asked us for their support, that we probably should support it. But I think we might also make the point that, you know, since this is really about mental health, not about politics, maybe we ought to try to figure out a way to reduce the political representation a little bit and perhaps increase the professional representation. I can see where we might have a few more members of this governing body who might be business people or professional medical people, as opposed to county commissioners. I mean, county commissioners are very wise and nice old men. They're just like me, but and gals. Excuse me. Not so old.
Or male.
But I think it might be appropriate if we do decide to provide our support, and I'm going to recommend that we do that we also suggest that that there is a problem here. The governing board really does need some professional business and medical representation to a greater degree than 2 of 21 members, I think, for what it's worth. That's my suggestion.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree with Bill. I mean, I'm hesitant to go against the county commissioners. They generally, whenever necessary, they try to support us as much as possible, and I think we should show them that courtesy also. But I definitely agree with Bill that if you get 19 out of 21 members that are politicians, that could be a recipe for disaster. So
I don't think it'll be a disaster. I just don't think it's a good balance on a governing board. That's
Well, let's hope it wouldn't be a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how we would recommend that we support it, but we might want to add something, some official language. Is that what is intended, do you think? From us to the...
Well, there's two ways we could go about it. One is to go ahead and sign the proclamation the way it's presented, but then put it under cover of a forwarding letter which says, oh, by the way, this is what we really think. Which gives us the opportunity to go on record as to what we think really ought to be happening, but gives the county the opportunity to show the support of the municipality for their position. That would be one way of doing it. And if I were the mayor, that's the way I would suggest, but I'm not the mayor.
Well, as the mayor, can I make another suggestion? I can make it, and you guys can let me know if you like it or not.
You can even issue an order.
I'm just the mayor on one vote. A couple of things. I work in, for anyone who doesn't know, I work in the field of mental health, and I actually work closely with this entity that this references, East Carolina Behavioral Health, though I don't receive any financial gain from that, so that I don't need to recuse myself. But I too want to support the county, but I also want to be putting something in place that's going to be what I think would be an effective board to help govern this organization. And if 19 members of a 21-member board are from 19 different counties and they're all focused on just what's best for their county and not that they wouldn't care about the other counties, but obviously the priority is their county, I can see where not a lot's going to get done. And when it comes to critical time to make decisions for this organization, if you're only focused on just your county, I just feel like it may just be an ineffective board versus a catastrophe happening or something. So I'm wondering if we could structure the language in here that we support county representation, but maybe that the numbers be less and it be based on a regional proportion. So of the 19 counties,
I think that would
divided up into I don't know how many regions, and that there would be a representative from X number of regions comprising those 20 or 19 seats, and maybe at least 50% or 60% or whatever of those 19 seats be representative of county commissioners.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Why don't you suggest that that a majority of the board be representatives of the county commissions, but that there be a substantial number of professional and of business and medical personnel on the board as well. And that ensures that the governing board is still controlled by commissioners, which I think is one of the intents.
So if you had one representative from 4 of those counties, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you
divide it up into groups. And,
yeah, something of that sort.
Okay.
Or they might come up with another idea of a way to do it. But I think when you have 21 seats, I mean, I guess I suspect that the other story here is that somebody's proposed to expand this to 48 members or something like that. Yeah, I figured.
And then that would be an ineffective board as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so limit the size and keep the majority as government commissioner reps, but make room for the professionals that they need, because they really do need them on a governing board.
I'm not sure of the timeline, whether time is of the essence. I'm wondering if you would agree, the board would agree. I would be happy to maybe work with Mary in revising the language, and we bring this back at our next meeting.
I move we lay this proposal on the table until such time as the mayor is ready to bring it back to the board.
Okay, I'll second that. Sounds good.
Any further discussion? All
I,
the-
I still say if you get 19 politicians together, sometimes it could be a disaster.
All right, all those in favor of the motion signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
All right.
Anything else this evening, Commissioner?
Yeah, I have a few items
Okay.
that I think we might want to discuss. And if you don't want to discuss them, it's perfectly okay, so let's put that off to another meeting. But we have a priced proposal from Aqua now for the Philadelphia Hills wastewater treatment facility. And it's well done, it's professional, it's businesslike, it's very straightforward. I'm not sure we want to do it, or that we would want to do it, but I think we owe them consideration. And I think that there are several items in there that are of concern to us and that we need to discuss at some point in time. One is the cost basis that they're using for the capitalization of the system that they're going to use thereafter as the capital base from which they're going to depreciate the cost, and that's going to form eventually the purchase price when it's time for the town to acquire the plant. Is that is that a reasonable proposition? I don't know. We did an assessment, that's not the right term. In real estate, they call it an appraisal. We did a professional appraisal, 4 years ago? And I know that there have been a lot of changes since then. Additions, maintenance work, improvements, and so forth. But I have no idea how you account for all of those, or whether you can add the numbers all together to form a logical value assessment. I suspect that we will have to go back through that process in some fashion, either a modified fashion or maybe a complete reappraisal. We're going to need help in doing that from somebody who knows how to do it. And then the second thing is the way the proposal is put together is the proposal is actually, let's have an unregulated utility. But oh, by the way, the 4 or 5 of us are going to sit in the hot seat. We're going to be responsible and respond to the citizens. And oh, by the way, we're going to double the rates over 10 years. Which is roughly 6.5%, 7% per year rate escalation, which may be a straightforward business proposition and the way it's going to go no matter who owns it, or it may not. But I think we need to look into that. And then once we've looked into it, do we want to get into that hot seat? Do we want to be the people who, as far as the citizens are concerned, are operating this system with Aqua, our contractor, for the disposal and owning the assets at the disposal? So there are quite a few questions that have to be addressed. And I think we need to sort of, should we get at it? Or should we just say, no, we do not want to do this? I think we need to get sort of through that hurdle. And then if we do want to address it, I think we need to lay out the tree, the methodology that we're going to go down in establishing value, in assessing risk. Is anybody else doing this? Who else do we know who's operating unregulated utilities? I don't know. I mean, of course, if we operated at our own with our own enterprise fund, that would also be unregulated. I mean, there's our water utility is an unregulated utility. It's not evil or anything, but at least we are answerable to the citizens, and they can get rid of us and fire us all if they don't like what we're doing. But where the provider is a contractor, that's not quite so easy to do, especially with a 30-year contract. At any rate, I think you get the gist of my comments. First, we need to make a decision. Do we want to take it on at all? If we do, then we need to lay out how we're going to go about establishing values and establishing risk and evaluating whether we want to put ourselves in this position.
And if I may ask, it's my understanding that once we receive the proposal, we are going to try to pull the committee together to have a meeting, or is that just, that wasn't necessarily definitely what was going to happen, that was just mentioned could happen? And I don't know.
Well, I'm on that committee, I guess. I was on the committee before you appointed me a commissioner. I don't know if that kicks me off or not, and it's okay by me if you do. I mean, I'm not going to be upset if I don't have to go to that meeting. But that committee would be a good group to establish a process to sort through it if that's what you want to happen, if that's what we want to happen. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if we don't really want to get involved, it's kind of silly to ask the committee to go. That's a lot of work, and it will also cost a lot of money. I mean, it will cost money, let's put it that way.
Perhaps, Mayor, if you would like, since the next meeting is just a couple of weeks away, we could actually put the item on the agenda for the board to have this discussion, maybe when the four of you would be present.
That's good. That's fine by me.
Right. I mean, or the other option would be to, as Commissioner Pitt said, where you bring the committee together. But if, and Mr. Jim Power is here from Aqua, and you know they've spent a lot of time and money also, and I would think that. And
it's a very good proposal. It really is. It's very well done.
And if the desire of the board is not to continue, then they deserve to know that. Mm-hmm. So we'll place it on the agenda.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see it on the agenda, and that gives us time to have.
All right.
Are you talking about having
it discussion
on the agenda? I don't know whether there would be a difference, but for a board discussion, or are you talking about requesting or expecting to have a presentation from them, or?
What I was thinking, and certainly this is the board's decision, but what I was thinking would be to have the discussion by the board based on the proposal that you have as to whether or not you'd like for the committee to regroup, perhaps appoint another member of the commissioners to serve on that.
An additional, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Or if you had someone else in mind, and so that we would know, as Commissioner Pitt said, there would have to be some work done to update the appraisal, and that would require a consultant. That is not something that the staff can do. There would also need to be considerable time, I'm sure, from the town attorney to review and speak to the document, and at some point a little more formal contact with the local government commission. I know
we're going to have to satisfy them that we are essentially effectively following the intent of the statute.
Yes, sir.
Which says that we're going to establish value in some reasonable fashion.
We're quite a bit a distance in time and money from the board actually making a decision to accept the proposal. The April conversation would be whether or not you want to continue considering the proposal.
Right. For example, if two of us or three of us say, I don't care how good the deal is, I don't want to take on that kind of risk, then it's pointless to continue.
Right. Actually, two of you.
Yeah. Well, if we have a four-member board.
Right.
If on the other hand, if one of us has an individual concern, for example, somebody says, well, I'm all for this as long as the Ocean Acres folks da-da-da-da, then that would be a special issue that the committee could examine and come back and advise that commissioner that here we looked at this and this is what this would mean for that particular issue. And that's appropriate. It's okay for somebody like myself to have a specific issue. You know, I'm really concerned about the liability of the board for the rate increases, that the political liability of the board for the rate increases, for example, for a commissioner who plans to run the rest of his life on the board. you know, that would be appropriate. That's not me, incidentally. I don't. But at any rate, that's what I meant by, you know, if we have special issues that need to be addressed by the committee in some fashion.
Okay.
And then we just have the straightforward. We have to satisfy the commission that we've basically followed the statute.
Okay. Well, let's add this to the first April meeting's agenda for discussion on whether to proceed with considering the proposal.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I have another one, if you will allow me to proceed.
You're on a roll. Go for it.
I'm on a roll. Beach nourishment. I think we've got enough information now that we ought to be able to make a reasonable decision as to whether we want to proceed in this town with beach nourishment on the north end of our oceanfront beach. And what I'd like to suggest is that we have that discussion. Again, we're talking about risk. We're talking about the burden of taxation that it would involve. And once again, if we don't have enough of us who want to undertake that, then it's rather pointless to spend a lot of money with consultancies and so forth to proceed. But on the other hand, if that's something that's surmountable and that we really want to examine, then I think we ought to get at it, and we ought to make those decisions, and we need to make the political contacts. We've got to get together with the county and see, can we replicate with them what Nags Head did with them, for example, because that's basically, the path would probably be something very similar to what Nags Head did, which is the county occupancy taxes paying a very significant portion of the cost, and the town paying roughly 25% of the cost. And then we would also have the issue of, do we want to go through the huge administrative bureaucratic process of trying for a 206 reimbursement project, or do we just want to say, we know that's never going to happen? And now you're hearing me talk about my personal opinion. You know, let's just get on with it. Let's do it and do a smaller project that we can manage and get with it. But those kinds of discussions have to be addressed, and then we have to make a decision. Are we really going to get at it, or are we going to say, no, we're not. We're going to leave that behind. And so I'd like to suggest that that's an appropriate, probably somewhere between a half hour to a 2-hour discussion. And I think what we would do is talk a little bit about what our concerns are so that we would address those concerns in that conversation. Like, I would like to address what I think is going to happen to us if we do nothing. Because I think I have somewhat of a handle on that. And that's what my concern is that if we do nothing, that the future is rather bleak for the north end. And so I would be trying to persuade you that that's important enough that we ought to move. But other people are going to be trying to persuade me that the cost is too high. We just can't afford it. And I understand that. So I'd like to suggest that as an appropriate long-range topic for this this commission.
Well, we do have a public forum scheduled for April 24th, and we had discussed a while back that while any topic could be discussed at that public forum, we want to specifically advertise that we want to encourage the public to come talk to us about beach nourishment. To kind of set the stage for that, I do think we need to have the board dialogue. You hate to bring the public in to discuss something if the board's already made their mind up or has a decision, and we have not had a discussion as this board about positions on that. So, Debbie, could we also add that to the agenda, if you all agree, to just have a discussion at the next agenda item on kind of where we stand with
Are you talking about
beach
the next
nourishment?
meeting? Okay.
And that would be prior then to the April 24th public forum.
Yeah, it's two big chunks of discussion.
Yeah.
We're going to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I think we don't have any public hearings scheduled for that evening, do we?
No, ma'am.
So, okay.
Okay. And then finally, there's the whole impact of reassessment. And what does it look like for our citizens, and what are they facing? And most individuals have figured that out for themselves in terms of their own property, but I don't know how many of us have been able to figure it out for what it means for the community as a whole. And I think it might be appropriate to spend 15 or 20 minutes talking about that.
Okay.
We have a convergence of some very important subjects here, don't we? And it's coincidental because the beach nourishment certainly is something that we're going to have to look at, especially after this last storm, and you see what happened some places and didn't happen others.
Right, right.
And we got the aqua proposal, and just the reassessment is they're all right here in our lap at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you're here for that.
There's some strategy there.
We'll add that also, yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think that's going to make a long meeting. But whatever. And I don't have any problem with setting aside one for another date or something of that sort, or having a special meeting, or.
What's our timeline for the budget and budget guidance and whatnot?
Well, where we are currently with the budget is the department heads have submitted their budget to the finance department, and they are currently working with that. We will present the budget to you either the first meeting in May or the second meeting in May. We're hoping on the first meeting. That's our goal. And the appeals for the reval should be in, was it the first part of April? Do you remember, Beverly? So that'll give us a little bit better handle on our numbers.
You aren't expecting a significant deviation because of appeals, are you?
No, Beverly's factored in 5%.
Right.
And we're actually hoping for less than that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hoping to
Yeah,
have more.
I would think it'd be pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I think so with this one, more so than
Yeah,
one
yeah.
before. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is there any desire to split those topics up and have an additional meeting, or just stick with doing it on the 8th?
Well, I think we could do it on the 8th if we're willing to submit ourselves to the discipline of you get so many minutes, Pitt, and that's it. Or, you get so many minutes, Mike, and that's it, or Sheila. And the fact that I have 36 minutes of material is immaterial because the mayor has given me 6 minutes to present. And I think if we lock ourselves into a discipline of that sort, I think we could actually get through it, and it would be less obfuscatory, if you know what I mean.
Sort of.
To have the short discussions that have to be brief and to the point. Because you know me, given the opportunity, I speak forever. I mean, that's who I am.
You have so much wisdom. That's why.
Oh, I don't think that's the case. I'm just old. But at any rate, I think if we discipline ourselves, we can get through it. And I think that all that's necessary is that somebody has to get the gavel out and say, okay, you got 6 minutes, go to it, boy.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can do that. And I also, depending on what else presents itself to be on the agenda, I think we can allocate those times once we see what's going to be on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can allocate and say,
Yeah.
okay, here's
Yeah.
what we're going to try
Yeah.
to do a time-specific
Yeah.
agenda as best as possible.
Because, let's just take beach nourishment, for example. If we want to have a discussion, we need to have some idea of what happens if we do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have some idea of what a reasonable project costs. We need to have some idea of what a full-blown 206 reimbursable costs. Now, so far, we've used up, 18 minutes? Maybe 20 minutes? And we need to have some idea of how we would lay out a special tax assessment district. And we need to have some idea of what it would cost the townspeople as a whole.
And if we allowed, say, 6 minutes for each of those, or 8 minutes, or whatever the mayor thinks is appropriate, and we assign that to either a commissioner or a member of staff, and they do a little presentation, we ought to be able to get through it. And at the end of it, we ought to be able, it would seem to me that we would have enough information to say, yeah, I'd like to consider going ahead, or, you know, now that I've seen it all, I don't want another thing, I don't want to hear about it again. Anyway, that's what I think our objective should be, to kind of go along those lines. And
Okay.
If I may, Mayor, also, if you saw that afternoon, evening, that it was getting to be too long, you could always recess.
Yeah.
And establish another date and time to continue the meeting. And that might be better than actually trying to establish another meeting date.
Sure. Right. We'll see if we can get everyone to stick to time commitments. And then, okay.
We want everybody that's here to hopefully stick around for everything. Maybe we could get a keg.
People would probably stick around, but
I think the commission frowns on that. There's a permit that
that's
we
something
need.
in our oath or something. Okay.
It's a thought.
Anything else you have this evening?
I think that sort of exhausts my list.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you.
Oh, I did have one more thing I wanted to say, and that is that I wanted to thank Paul for his service and ask all of you to pray for him, because he's got a hard row. He's sick, he's ill, and I know what it means to be ill like that. And it's hard to come back, and I think he's going to try pretty hard to do that. So I hope you'll join me in wishing him good luck in that, and good progress, and making good progress as he fights this illness.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, just to continue that for just a second. I know Paul was tried hard to. I had a couple of discussions with him. He tried to hang in there, but he just couldn't do it. And I give him a lot of credit for doing what he did. It's a very hard thing to do. Just as an anecdote, when he was elected as a commissioner in the beginning, he had been on the planning board, and I was the person appointed to take his place. So thanks to him, I got my start. So I can blame him for it, or you can blame him for it, whichever. I have two short things. I mentioned we had our bomb track site study committee meeting, and we are going to have one more meeting, I think just one, and we'll be sending a list to the board of several things that we'd like to see happen back there in time based on money and desire, etc. Disc golf is being one, and the way we're going to do that, we're going to put these ideas up to the board, and the board is going to decide which ones are a possibility and then direct staff to do the research on them, rather than us doing all the research and spending a year or two trying to figure out what all this costs and if it's feasible and all that. We might be wasting our time as a subcommittee to have done that, and then the board says they're not interested in it. So we'll be sending up something, and it won't be at the 8th meeting. We'll wait and do that maybe in May. One other thing too, this past Monday and Tuesday, myself and Greg and Debbie attended the North Carolina Coastal Local Governments annual meeting, and it was very informative. There was a good many speakers, and they spoke for a short time, which was good because it kept you interested. Talked about different kind of insurance reform and disaster recovery. There was a talk on Gulfstream ocean energy, using the currents and such. I had a nice little history lesson on the shipwrecks of the Outer Banks. And the CAMA representatives and the Coastal Resources Commission people were there and gave us an update on what they're up to. And touching on what Bill said, this has somewhat of a relation. It has to do with inlet dredging. And who pays for it and such. We're going to be dealing with that with the beach nourishment. And we dealt with sea level rise, which by the time it overtakes us, we probably won't be here. So, but we do have to plan for it. And Ken Wilson, who has spoken here regarding he's been working with us on our finding out more about the beach nourishment projects. He was there and he talked about trying to expand the dredging windows so they can get some more stuff done without having to take the boats away. That be for dredging or for the beach nourishment. And that was about it, but it was very informative. The last thing they did was they had a drawing for valuable door prizes, and I didn't win anything. So I stayed around for nothing. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you. Under Mayor's agenda this evening, just a couple of items. First, I meant to bring this to our attention at the last meeting, but I forgot. Most of you have probably noticed now the median in front of Lowe's, the concrete median that used to be there, was removed. And you may recall, I think it was, goodness, maybe even a year ago, that citizens came to our meeting and expressed concerns, and we passed those concerns on to NCDOT, and then they did put the plans together to remove that concrete median and have done so now. Just bringing that up just to show that NCDOT does listen, and we have continued to have a good relationship with them, and I think they responded in the appropriate way by removing that when they recognized that it was actually more of a hazard than it was doing maybe what it was intentionally designed to do, or originally designed to do.
There's a rumor that they're going to come back and put a median in, which is much like the one at Home Depot. I should still be able to utilize the turning lane as it was intended, and we're similar to the one at Collington. But I've yet to see that, or anybody send me an email telling me when. I hope it's between now and July 4th or something.
If they're going to do it right. Well, if we do hear anything, we'll report it out to let you know, because, yeah, could be that or could be nothing. Commissioner Pitt, I too certainly want to kind of recognize the fight that Paul has ahead of him. And, he's served, whether it's in this capacity as a commissioner or on his prior service as a planning board member, he served the town for nearly 17 years and has put a lot of his heart and soul in it through the years. And he does have a pretty significant fight ahead of him. He did share in a phone call that we had earlier, and it was alluded to in his letter that he's not driving right now and is homebound. He loves Kettleville Hills and the citizens here, and if anyone is interested in reaching out to him, I know he would be appreciative. He certainly, give him a heads up if you want to stop by and visit, but I know that he would appreciate people calling upon him. So, and the last two things is just to kind of recognize the students that came here tonight. It was certainly obvious by the one presentation how much time they put into looking at numbers, and it's kind of refreshing to see the hard work that they put into it. And the other group that the two young men that were here just speaking passionately about something that they think would be an asset to our town, and I like seeing that student engagement. And with that, we'll move on to town manager's agenda. No, I actually have
HR
resolution. Just, let's go to the resolution. It's in the packet supporting HR 819, preserving access to the Cape Hatteras National Seashore Recreational Area Act. This was recently introduced or reintroduced as HR 819 by Representative Walter Jones. And it's a bill that's tentatively scheduled for a hearing before the House Natural Resources Subcommittee. If the bill, if it's passed and signed into law by the President, would overturn the Seashore's management plan for off-road vehicles and pedestrians and put in place regulations that were followed under the Interim Protected Species Management Act issued by the National Park Service back in 2007. And I recommend approval of the resolution.
I so move, and I move that we authorize the mayor to sign it.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now, town manager's agenda.
Nothing this evening.
Town attorney's agenda.
Don't have anything for you this evening.
Consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. Consent agenda, four items, excuse me. The minutes from the February 11th and February 15th, 2013 meeting. The East Carolina Bank Rate Modification Agreement. This is actually reducing our interest rate, and thank Beverly and her staff for being on top of that. Number 3 is the National Interlocal Contract for Cooperative Purchasing. This is with the Houston-Galveston Area Council, a regional council of 13 county governments that have installed a program called HGAC by approximately 30 years ago that allows for piggybacking on nationally bidded purchases through a formal process that saves both time and money to the entities that are a part of this. There's no membership requirement to participate, and research has confirmed that it's a beneficial program with approximately 70 North Carolina public bodies already belonging to the HGAC by. The approval of the consent agenda would record the board's authorization for the town to participate with them also. And then lastly is the Government Education Access Channel, the proposed budget for 2013-2014. And the staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second, and I do have a comment before we move on.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'd like to also thank Beverly. The interest rate in question is regarding a loan that the town got in to finish or to make improvements to the town's public works. And I don't remember. Oh, that was 2005, I guess. Anyway, the rate has gone down from 3.39 to 2.45, which is almost a whole percent, and it'll save the town $62,000 over the life of the loan. So, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good work.
Great. And I also would like to comment on item number 4 that's in the consent agenda, basically just recognizing for the $1,000 investment that we do each year as a town into the GovEd channel, how much a return on investment I think we get from that, not only from the equipment that we get through grant funds that come out of that, but now with all of the basically airtime that we have between the commissioners' meetings, the spotlights, the PSAs, and all the hard work that John Towler's done with some of those other announcements and community messaging. So I just think that's such a great return on investment for us. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now this is the time set aside for the second public comment this evening. And the same rules, so to speak, apply as the first public comment. If you wish to speak at this public comment, you'll come to the lectern and identify yourself by name and address. And as an individual, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of the group, it's 5 minutes. And Mr. Milton, you already raised your hand. You'd like to speak first. Certainly.
Yes, I'm sorry that I didn't realize that I had to sign up just to talk about. This is the most important decision of my life and that of my mother, Darlene Mays, who Stephen Michael met before, past ex-president of Ladies Auxiliary of VFW in Virginia. My sister's a National Honor Guard now, and they're involved in this house too. And it's everything I own and work for. And all I'm asking is before you make your final decision on the 8th about this, that you allow me a little more time it's the 1st of May to finish this demolition. I just got all my blueprints engineered, and I'm ready to go to East Carolina Bank to get this demolition. Has already been proposed at $6,500, and Eddie Yount is going to do me a deal, and I've got half of the stuff that needs to be out of there gone already, and I've got a trailer that I've been using, and finally getting everything copacetic for Lee Partridge and Donna and Greg Loy. And I just wanted to say, if you could give me a little more time so I can not lose everything I've owned in my whole life, because I realized that I had a property that was on Boundary Street for years that I had to pay property taxes on, and I lost all that and still was required by law to pay taxes on it 2 years after it was a road, and I was never compensated at all. So if I'd have gotten any kind of compensation, I could have built a new roof at the time so that I wouldn't be in this mess. And I've already got this new house all drawn up. Greg's got a drawing over there that he can show y'all that just got engineered, so I'm ready to roll. And I just wanted to ask y'all for a little bit more time before you make your final decision on this, so that I can show you in 2 weeks till the 8th, when you have your meeting again, what I can do, and Lee Partridge can come by and inspect me so that I can get this thing taken care of after all this time and all these years. I want to comply with the town's orders, and I'd like for the property taxes that I've paid all those years to be a consideration for these liens and fines that have been put on me, so that the bank will still give me a loan, because if they have all these liens on me, they won't do it. And I'll lose everything I own and my mother. And we've had this property for 23 years now, and I don't want to lose everything of my whole life. It'll just ruin me. So I'm just asking you to take a little consideration before you yay and nay me, that y'all make your decision on the 8th. Give me the next 2 weeks to show you what I can do, and if I can have the house demoed by the 1st of May, that we can put an end to this and I can build my new house. And I'd like for Greg to show you my drawings I had to come up with myself, because I didn't have the money to hire an architect. When I went to NC State in interior design, I knew how to draw myself, and I've been a carpenter all my life. And the roof on my house was built wrong in the first place with no permit or codes. It was built 2 foot on center instead of 16 inches, and that's why the roof has sagged and collapsed, and that was no fault of mine. But I just want a little bit more time and a little bit of consideration before I lose everything I've ever owned. And thank you for your time to reconsider and let me speak. I didn't know I had to sign up, but just weigh it in your hearts and take that into consideration. I know it's easy to come in there with the city and just take everything I own, but make one more plea that y'all give me a little more time and I'll get it done for you, because I've already got the drawings already with the engineer, and I've got to pay for that out of the bank loan. So if I don't get this bank loan, I'm shot. So please give that a thought, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Milton. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak? Yes, Mr. Buchanan.
My name is Howard Kimball. I live at 803 West Sportsman Drive. I want to speak just a minute about the Aqua America proposal. I was under the assumption that when the when the new board took over, that y'all had requested from Aqua to send you a best and final proposal for you to vote up or down. Okay. That's what I remember from the meetings. Now, as far as their appraisal of the value of the property, if you remember, the owner's appraisal before was way out of line with the proposal that the town paid for. You know, so I don't know where this new one is, but whatever the best and final is. And also, I'm having trouble understanding that if owning this plant is such a fantastic deal, then why are they trying to go in with Kill Devil Hills as a partnership? I see them saddling the town with the troubled collection system. The town will have to do all the billing and the collecting. And Aqua will simply, the way I understand it, they'll just bill you for gallons that come through the plant, and the town has to write them the check. Now, will this board have the courage, if we go into this partnership, will y'all have the courage to raise the rates as Aqua dictates and bill the users, or will you do as boards have done in the past and not have the wastewater being a self-supporting entity and passing the cost to non-users such as myself? I just want you to think about these things because I haven't read the new proposal, but to me, if it's such a great deal, they wouldn't even be talking to us. They would have bought the plant and they would be operating it. But I know the reason why, because if they do it, they have to go through the rate commission in Raleigh. By partnering with the town, they don't have to do that. They can say, hey, we had to do this and this and this, and you have to pay for that and give us our 9% profit. And I would like to get 9% on my little bit of money I've got in the bank. So thank you very much, but please consider these things when y'all are dealing with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. And I apologize when I called you up. I had Howard Buchanan on the brain, not Howard Kimball, so I apologize for that. So thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening? Yes, Jim.
Hi, I'm Jim Powers. I'm with Aqua, North Carolina. Howard, I appreciate your comments.
Sorry, well, I knew that was coming, but
yeah, no, that's not why I asked to speak. You have our proposal. The only thing I was going to suggest is that hopefully we would have an opportunity to discuss that with you to make sure that we were clear on what we put. It's a very complicated issue. Instantly enough, our rate design shows it for probably 90% of the customers in both Kill Devil Hills and the current owner's customers, their rates would go down. It looks like those rates could be suppressed at their current rates for some period of time. So there's a lot of things that aren't completely understood. The way, Howard, that our rates are going to be fixed in the contractor, and our actually returns are lower than they are with the commission returns that we would normally get. The reason that we chose not to buy it directly from them is because of the way that the commission values the system. It would be very difficult for us to even get any kind of a return by buying it outright. So we've taken a lower return on this. The other thing is there's no growth in our models that we put forth, and over the last 2 years that we've been working on this, there's been some pretty substantial growth. So the only thing is just I would ask that oh, by the way, thank you, Commissioner Pitt, for your kind words about our proposal. I should have said that up front. But I just would ask that maybe we have an opportunity to come and talk to you a little bit about what's in the proposal to make sure that we were clear on what the offer was, because having spent a lot of personal time on it, it was very, very difficult to write and to explain because it's very complicated. And thank you for the time to speak, and thank you all for all the time you spent working with us over the years to put this together.
Thank you.
Okay. Debbie, is that online, that proposal?
No, sir.
No, it's not. Okay.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening? Okay. All right, Jerry.
Yes, my name is Jerry Freilich. I live at 414 Wallace Street. I have been involved as a participant directly with Planning Board and as an observer for probably many years, 15. And I understand that there is a great concern with trying to do anything with outdoor displays. I know all of the arguments. I've heard them for, I've heard them against. And up until a few weeks ago, I kind of thought that outdoors displays were unsightly. But that was before somebody, I don't know the name of the company, remodeled the store at the corner, the southeast corner of Arch, where they took what once was a house when I first moved here, and then turned into a market, and then turned into a fish store, and now it's turned into a rental agency. When they first opened, they put an outdoor display out there consisting of bikes, lawn chairs, kayaks, and things of this type. And it didn't look too bad. It didn't look any worse than any of the others. But if you haven't driven by there lately, they haven't bothered to go out there and arrange them in some kind of a display. It looks like they've thrown them, well, I don't know what it looks like. They have thrown them all in a heap. They're just, looks like it's waiting for a pickup for a garbage truck. And if they can't do anything about controlling that, if the town can't, then at least they can perhaps go by there and say, will you do something with them to make it a little bit better than it is? Because it's a mess. And everybody know where I am talking about now? The southeast corner of Arch and the bypass. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak this evening with this public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. And response to public comment. Just take them in order. First was Mr. Milton's comments and request for an extension or an exception.
I'd like to propose a reconsideration of new business 4.
Okay. I'll second that. And procedurally, is that we would reconsider that?
Well, all that says is if we agree to reconsider, then we will agree to discuss it. That doesn't mean we are going to do anything. We may decide after discussing it that we're not going to do anything.
And we would do that, though, just for clarification. We would rediscuss or open that back up after we address all of public comment. Okay.
You mean today?
Yes, at this meeting. It has to be at this meeting, actually, I believe.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I will second that.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Okay.
All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And
Right, so does everyone follow? We're going to finish on with public comment, and then we'll discuss that again. Okay. Then Howard Kimball, I think we talked about Aqua, and Jim Power, kind of the same thing. We're going to have this on the meeting, our next meeting on the 8th.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we just need to map out the time as far as allotting how we're going to look at that. So Jim, we'll follow back up with you, 3W, as far as how we're going to map out how that agenda looks and the time factor.
Howard said that we had agreed to an up or down vote on a best and final. Is that correct? Is that in the minutes?
I don't know if that was exact wording. I obviously, the mayor and I both were here for that meeting, and it was, I don't know that it was formal. It was sort of like, go back to the drawing board, come up with a proposal, and show us the proposal, and we'll look at it. Maybe the words final was there, maybe it wasn't, but it was, and that was, what, a year ago, right? So,
Close to it.
Yeah, January, I think.
Yeah. What I recall of the meeting was the intent was we didn't need to keep going back and forth with discussions and presentations.
Okay.
Let's receive a proposal that we can either make a decision to go forward or not.
Okay.
So, which I think is pretty much what you were intending to put on the next agenda.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Jerry's comment about the rental company on Arch Street.
Yeah, can we have the code enforcement officer go down?
I'll go talk to him.
All right.
I promise you.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Okay. So before we adjourn now, let's revisit item number 4.
Since I made the motion to reconsider, let me tell you what I had in mind as I listened to the discussion. And I don't have the deep background that I know that planning and town administration and town attorney have. But I think the question that popped into my mind was, what is the harm in laying this ordinance on the table until the next meeting and giving the property owner I guess it would be 2 weeks. Is that right? The 2 weeks to, is there a good reason not to do that? If there is, I'm willing to say, okay, I understand. I realize the severity of this, and I realize that usually there are good reasons for this.
Right.
But on the other hand, if he really is in a position to actually get this done, is it to our advantage as well to let him do that?
If he's truly in a position to get it done and get it done, it certainly is in our advantage. That's what we've been hoping for quite a bit of time, and I won't go through the history either. But certainly, it's not something that the town looks forward to having to do, and would much prefer that he did take care of the situation. The problem is he hasn't in the past when, he has said that he would, and that's why we were at the point that we needed to bring this to the board. However, if by doing that will help him move forward, then there certainly wouldn't be any objections to.
Do you have a personal recommendation on that?
Personally, I would like for him to take care of it and the town not have to.
Right.
But I think a date of certainty is going to have to be established for that to happen.
Okay.
And if I may add, in addition to a date of certainty, I think we need to be crystal clear on what is supposed to happen by that date of certainty. So if we're going to, as Mr. Milton's requested, allow 2 more weeks, exactly what has to be accomplished in those 2 weeks?
Well, if I understood correctly, and not to speak for you, Delbert, he was asking for 2 weeks to show
The nuisance improvement.
right. You were asking for the 1st of May to have it demolished and gone.
Exactly.
So perhaps the board might consider the first meeting in May as a date certain.
Okay.
At that point, the nuisance, the structure would all have to be corrected.
Okay.
And by corrected, I mean the nuisance, the structure would have to be demolished and removed.
All right. Now, would he also have to comply with the penalties that have been levied by that date, or not?
Typically, with the town, our desire, our hope is compliance, more so than penalty. I
Okay.
would suggest that if by that date, all of that was accomplished, that the penalties no longer be charged to him.
Then I am ready, if it's all right with the rest of the commission, I'm ready to offer a motion to lay this ordinance on the table.
Well, let me make a suggestion
All right.
to you. You've already adopted the ordinance.
Yes.
What you haven't done is you haven't funded it.
Okay.
I would suggest you just postpone the vote on funding the demolition to your May meeting.
All right.
So I wouldn't come back at the April meeting, as my memo stated. I would come back at the May 13th meeting.
All right.
Because it wouldn't have been
All right.
accomplished, and I would
Okay.
come back with a
Okay.
figure for what it would cost.
That
the
makes
town.
sense. Do you understand what we're doing, or what's being proposed?
Yes, sir, that's very lenient, thank you. That would be perfect.
So, just for clarity and for the record then, this won't come back to the May meeting, the funding request. And then our decision at the May meeting on whether we fund it or not
Depends
is
on
going to
whether
be
the-
specifically dependent on,
Whether it needs to be done.
right, and that's defined as,
No.
that's what I want to make sure is crystal clear. That's defined as what?
The structure being demolished and removed, and the nuisance, which was the second part that spoke to the court, be removed.
Okay, so basically we're at this point saying Mr. Milton will take care of all of that, and as long as that's done, then we would not be involved in having to do it. But if it's not done, if it's not completely done, then the decision would be for us to fund that and move forward.
good.
Exactly. Lee Partridge can come by and see me anytime.
Okay.
And I think you probably do need my motion to reset it from the you set it on the 8th.
Right.
And I think you need to put it on that May 13th agenda.
Actually,
Okay.
I don't think it was set, but it wouldn't hurt to clarify that. It was just in my memo.
Mhm.
But that'll make the minutes
All right,
plainer.
okay. So do you need a motion?
I would think a motion to set the funding of the.
All right, then I move that the funding for new business 4 be rescheduled for the first meeting in May versus the meeting in April.
Yes, sir.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, anything else before we adjourn? Not, motion to adjourn?
I so move.
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.